Hello, my friend. The next day, after receiving the energy, I was visited by Irene, a Portuguese friend to whom I talk about what had happened to me the day before. I asked her if she wanted me to transmit the energy to her. I specify that it's not the energy that normally flows through the body, but something that comes from outside and can be assimilated to the Holy Spirit. I prefer to say energy, as the term Holy Spirit is too confusing and too related to religious discourse. She agreed to take part in this experiment. I did not know how to do it, but the right moves happened automatically. I took her hands and asked her to close her eyes. We were each sitting on one side of my couch, in a corner, in a position that would have been tiring quickly. I had left the light on so as not to scare her, but later, with other people, we prefer to be in the dark. I called the energy for the first time in a concentration of my consciousness that became habitual for me from that moment on. I felt a kind of extremely pleasant fluid entering my head and descending into my heart to rise into her. We stayed in this position for a very long time without moving, despite the position that should have been unbearable, enjoying the supreme happiness that we felt. When I opened my eyes, I noticed that she opened them at the same time, which happened each time with other people. We felt great and words were no longer necessary. When Fumi came to see me, she also accepted the experience and was particularly receptive. Every time I met someone, I offered to give them the energy, or accepted. The women were more receptive than the men, but the men felt it more strongly. However, my former companions, whom I saw again, were completely resistant and received nothing noticeable. I had a lot of experience in transmitting energy. I tried the laying on of hands on the chest or on the back. It worked every time. The rite still exists in the Christian religions, but it is only a gesture without real transmission. However, I think that in the early days of Christianity, people received this energy which gave them the strength to go to the torment with a smile on their face. We see it represented on the oldest painting in Romanesque church. Thus, I passed it on to many people, including Colette, Ida, and many others over the years. When Michiko received it, she spoke to me about other humans as if they were in another world, another dimension. While the religions speak only with seriousness and compunction of the Holy Spirit, we had fun with energy. In particular, I transmitted through the gaze. It was brief but very intense. When we would take the subway, each of us sitting on a platform opposite each other while waiting for the train, we would look at each other and I would send the energy we received with closing our eyes. It even happened that at a cocktail party where I had gone with Fumi, Colette, and Hida, each one being in discussion in a different group, it was enough for our eyes to meet and very briefly send each other a dose of energy without the interlocutors noticing it. To transmit or receive energy through the eyes, a passive transmitter and receiver were needed. I showed several people how to do this and they managed to transmit it to some of their friends. We even tried by phone, especially when Fumi was visiting her family in Tokyo. After we exchanged news, I would ask her to close her eyes and sent her the energy. She received as strongly as if we were next door. For several years, I was able to pass on this fantastic fluid to many people. But I finally realized that it was not possible to continue in this way one by one. It took me too long to explain, and especially some people had unfriendly reactions by projecting their inner darkness onto me afterwards. In addition, I found that the spiritual aspiration that had brought my visitors to this kind of experience had diminished over time, replaced by a very materialistic vision of the world. Finally, I stopped this individual transmission, replaced by the impact of the Kaleidoscope's cinematographic paintings generated by Extasium. If one looks at them in the way I prescribe, one can hope to reach places of ecstasy and bliss after a certain amount of time while remaining at home. Let's go back to 1965. On my way back to Paris, I went to Voireconnaître to ask if I couldn't go back to Caracas, which I liked so much. As the place was already taken, I was offered to go with a group of about 10 young people of my age to Blanès on the Costa Brava, to the south and closer to Barcelona. There were no longer small creeks but large beaches. When we arrived on the spot, we learned that the hotel had been changed, and we found ourselves in another one where nobody spoke French. A boy in our group knew Spanish, and the hotel owner never thought that I was in charge. As we were heckling too much for his taste, it was this boy who was being yelled at instead of me, which he didn't like at all. The evening of our arrival, we decided to go all together to take a forbidden midnight bath, and not to be taken by the Guardia Civil, we went in a dark corner. The water was very hot, but we felt things that floated in the water and we did not stay too long. The next day, we realized that we had bathed in the outlet of the sewers that were not filtered at that time, and that what we had touched were turds. We had bathed in shit. I went out of my way to conquer pretty girls with vacation romances. One day, I saw a beautiful English girl surrounded by a group of young Spanish who were bothering her. In a chivalrous way, thanks to my little knowledge of English, I extracted her from these bulky characters to join my group who had become friends. But there, the girls of the group laughed so much at her typically English whitewashed basin that to get her out of their sarcasm, I took her straight to my hotel room and we played more intimate games. Between the time I met her and the time we slept together, it had only been 15 minutes, my speed record for flirting and success. In the evening, I was too tired to go out, but the friends went to a disco where the whiteness of the skins could no longer be seen. They met my afternoon conquest in an evening dress and realized then that she was gorgeous, but unfortunately I never saw her again. I kept a memory of one of my conquests that made me go to the prophylactic center in the Assas Street on my return to Paris. It was my first hot piece of gonorrhea.